Zoning Board of Appeals, you're live and you're being recorded.
Okay, thank you, Michael and LTV. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for September 28th, 2021. We'll start off with canceled public hearings. We have two of them this evening in case you were here to virtually attend those meetings. The first one that is canceled is Harvey Elgart at 64 South Elroy Drive in Montauk. Tax map number 300-48-2-11. That will not be heard this evening. As well, we will not be hearing the public hearing for Michael Grunberg at 39 Green Hollow Road in East Hampton, tax map number 300-193-2-7.6. So moving down to scheduled public hearings for this evening, we will start off with Pauline Post is the applicant, and the lot size and location is 41,548 square feet at 9 Quadrant Hill Road in Landfall Section 1, Lot 12, map number 5668, filed 1/3/1972, East Hampton tax map number 300-55-1-13. The description here is to allow a 117 square feet of pool decking to remain within side yard setbacks. The relief sought is one variance of 7.2 feet from 255-11-10 table of dimensional regulations of the town code to allow the pool decking to remain 22.8 feet from the side yard western lot line where 30 feet is required, and any other relief necessary. The zoning district here is an A residence zone. The flood zone is X, the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
We have an affidavit that the mailings were done on the 13th day of September, and the affidavit states that the posting was done on the 12th day of September. So the paperwork appears to be in order.
Okay, thank you. And this is in board member Tim Brenneman's East Hampton district. Tim, if you would, please, with your field report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I visited the property yesterday. It's, as noted, Quadrant Hill Road. It's in the landfall area of East Hampton, and this property in particular borders Cedar Point Park. So we're very familiar as a board with that area. It was properly posted. Next photo. So I'm just standing in the same place, but now I'm giving you a look at, if you look at the survey, you can see the long driveway. And so I'm looking down the driveway here. The house on this photograph would be off to the left. Next photo. Notice was also posted prominently on the front door. And so anybody who was walking up the door would have certainly seen. Next photo. So now I've walked around to the east and the wood deck. So the bump out in particular, you can see off behind the umbrella there, and I'll get several photos of this, but this is a back deck. You can also see how the deck is elevated. The property, Quadrant Hill Road is named Hill Road for a reason. The terrain is very rolling here, and the property does fall away very quickly from that side of the decking. Next photo. So now I've walked over and just taken a close-up photo of the bump out portion of the deck in question. This is the portion of the deck that is causing the variance. Again, you can see behind the amount of vegetation. There is no home behind that would be impacted by this particular bump out. Next photo. Now I've walked to the opposite end just to give a perspective of the location of the bump out to the pool. Next photo. Again, another photo of the bump out in question. Next photo. Now, from there, I've looked again out to the back of the property to the east and I'm sorry, to the west, and you can start to see the other yard coming in, and you can't really even see any home from this vantage point. Next photo. I've turned around from there and just taken a shot of the back of the house. Again, what I would say here is very vegetated, very natural setting, rolling hills. That's the setup to the variance request. I think that's it, Tyler. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Board members, any questions for Tim?
I have one clarification, if you will, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
And Tim, that bump out, the adjoining property owner that's most affected by this is the county of Suffolk, right? So that would be the county park?
Yes, at Cedar Point Park.
Cedar Point Park. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I was actually probably facing south when I was trying to snap that photo to see if I could get the nearest property owner, but it wasn't as easy to capture because it's still very vegetated.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Okay, we will move along. I believe we have the applicant here. Pauline Post, good evening. You can unmute yourself. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Thank you all for listening to this, to our case. I did prepare a little note to talk about it. I don't know if this is the right time.
Yeah, that's great. The only thing, just some business is we just need, if you are not an attorney, I will have to swear you in.
Sure.
Okay, if you'd raise your right hand, please, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Good evening again, and go ahead. This is your time. So
great.
Go ahead, please. Okay,
thank you. To all the East Hampton board members, nice to meet you, and thank you for taking the time to go over our case. My family has owned the house at 9 Quadrant Hill for over 40 years. My parents purchased it before I was born. I grew up spending vacations there, surrounded by family. So father, mother, grandmother, cousins, and now I get to go with my husband and my kids. My husband and I, we love the house so much, and it's very important for us that it's cared for and maintained properly. We recently replaced some of our outside decking. It looks new, but we replaced it exactly as is. We kept the same materials, it's natural cedar wood, and the same design, the same layout. During our inspection, a small area was flagged as not complying with the town's setback requirement, which came as a surprise to us as the deck has always been as it is now. So we're coming to you today to apply for this variance to be allowed to keep this small area of the deck. As you heard, it's about 9 by 13 and it misses the setback by 7 feet. It's currently being used as a seating area where, for example, adults or my mom, other grandparents can rest while watching the kids in the pool. The side of the house faces Cedar Point Park at some distance, and we don't believe we're a bother to them. It's also quite a distance from our neighbors. And again, it has been there exactly the same from the beginning. As also it was pointed out, we're definitely a nature-loving family. My kids are saying, like, how come the animals love our house so much each time a deer or a wild turkey comes up? And it's true. I mean, we haven't cut any trees. Everything's exactly as it has always been. We don't have any fencing. And that's what we love most about the house, the way it just feels like it's just in the forest, and it's absolutely beautiful both in the summer and the winter. So we really do hope that you'll allow us to keep this small area of the decking. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll let Tim start off. Tim, if you have any questions from the applicant.
I don't think that I do, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I just have one. Did you say that, I may have missed this, but that you reconstructed the deck and it was always as it has been? Did I, in plan?
So the deck was 40 years old, and there were areas of the wood that needed to be replaced. So yes, we did replace the areas that needed to be replaced, but the design, the layout, the structure of it is exactly as it's always been. So this area in question has always been there exactly the same way.
I see. I see. And maybe it wasn't picked up on a survey previously or something.
I think that's the issue, but I'm at a point where my mom is too old to remember it, and my dad is no longer here. And I again, it was a surprise to us.
Sure. Thank you. I have no further questions. Board members?
I have
Anyone?
no further questions.
Okay, well, thank you, Pauline. Let's hear from the planning department, and then we'll hear if there's any public comment, and then you can always have a final word, or if you wish. So, Tyler, if you please, Tyler Borsak from the planning department.
Good evening, Tyler Borsak for the planning department. How are you tonight?
Well, doing well. Thanks, Tyler. I'll go ahead and swear you in. Tyler, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Go ahead, please, Tyler.
So I don't have much else to add. It's a fairly straightforward area variance from the side yard lot line. Mike did go, was the original author of the assessment. He did go through the aerials, and he did note that the decking has been in the same configuration since at least 2001. Aerials before then are more sparse, and B, more difficult to really lock down what something specifically looks like at that scale. But at least dating back to 01 is what the deck looked like. So it certainly has been like this for a long time. Other than that, I don't have anything really else to add. I can answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. Board members, any questions for Tyler?
Yeah, I just had one question, Tyler, and I realize you didn't write the TAM, but I read that last line in the analysis, which the last two lines, additional screening could be considered as mitigation for the project if the board chooses. However, additional landscape along the western boundary may be more impactful as viewed from Cedar Point Park over the existing vegetation. So that, however, threw me off. Isn't that the same area that you would put up some screening in? Do you have any perspective on that?
I mean, it's fairly well vegetated in there. And it is quite a distance between there. There is a trail sort of over here somewhere to the west, not terribly close to the property though. So I don't know if adding additional screening will make it look unnatural. Maybe that's what he was going for in that sort of a case, rather than just the standard oak woodland that's in there now.
I appreciate that comment. I actually agree with that. I think the property slopes away in such a way that I wonder if screening would actually work. It would take a long time for it to grow up there. But that just was my impression when I was there.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tyler. Anyone else?
I would only say that looking at those photos that were provided by Member Renneman and knowing that it's a county park, I would agree that adding anything that seemed artificial there would not be preferable. And it seems as if we can be fairly well guaranteed as that's going to stay vegetated. I don't see the county doing anything to clear it. So I don't really have a problem with what's been stated so far about that, that line, which seems to be the most critical one. And I wanted to make sure that we heard, and it has been stated that the footprint is absolutely not changed. Boards have changed, but that footprint has been here since 2001 at least. So that's at least something of a comfort that this is not any kind of recent change. That's my
Thank you, Ed. And I'll just add that for your family, thank you for your stewardship of the property. It's certainly, I know this area well. I grew up down the beach, and it's wonderful that you are taking care of it and leaving the vegetation so much. So commendations to your family. Otherwise, if there's no other, let's see, LTV, do we have any public who wishes to speak?
No, Chairman, there are no callers at this time.
Okay, Pauline, any final thoughts? You don't, not required.
No. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You will be hearing from the board officially within 60, well, actually, it depends on the record will be closed. You'll hear in the motion, and it'll all be clear from the motion. So Tim, would you like to go ahead and make that motion, please?
I would. I'm going to ask council to remind me of my wording here for the written record.
Written record on public hearings is 2 weeks after the transcript posts.
Thank you. So in the matter of Pauline Post at 9 Quadrant Hill Road in East Hampton, I make a motion to close the public hearing and to hold the public record open until 2 weeks after it posts on the town website.
I'll second it.
Okay, I concur.
And I concur.
And I concur as well. Okay, thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tyler. And Pauline, thank you. And take care.
Thank you. Do I exit the Zoom at this point?
Yes, you do, please.
Okay.
You
Wonderful.
can always enjoy watching us over LTV if you choose to spend your evening, the next 4 hours doing that. You're welcome to.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, board members, we will move on to our next public hearing. Excuse me. The applicants here are Philip and Lois Malinzak at 305 Kings Point Road in Springs, tax map number 300-24-1-12. The lot size and location is 20,909 square feet at 305 Kings Point Road, map of Clearwater Beach, section 1, Springs, tax map number, I read that in already. Description is to construct 2,495 square feet of first and second floor additions, 768 square feet of covered porches, and 468 square feet of second story deck, cellar egress windows, walkways, driveway, and sanitary system on a parcel of land containing coastal bluffs, beaches, and tidal surface waters. The relief sought is a natural resources special permit pursuant to 255-4-20 and 5 variances from 255-4-30 minimum wetland setbacks and 255-4-40 coastal setbacks of the town code and any other relief necessary. The following variances are required. 1, a 17-foot variance is required to construct the porch 83 feet from wetlands where a 100-foot setback is required. 2 through 5 variances of 28.9 feet, 19 feet, 12 feet, and 7 feet are required to construct the porch addition cellarway west and cellarway east 46.1 feet, 56 feet, 63 feet, and 68 feet respectively from the bluff crest where 75-foot setbacks are required. This is in a B residence zone. The flood zone is X, the secret class is type 2. And council, do we have a proper affidavit of service and posting?
An affidavit that the mailings went out on the 15th day of September and that the posting went up on the 16th day of September. So the paperwork appears to be in order.
Okay, thank you, council. Okay, this is in Vice Chair Roy Delene's Springs District. Roy, if you would, please.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. I visited the site actually this afternoon. This is a photo of the posting. It was properly posted. And I'm going to start walking you through the site. This is looking at the residence in this application, and this is facing north. I scan over to look at the neighboring properties, the neighboring house, and I'm going to start walking down the east side of the property. Right here is where the septic system is proposed, septic and leaching fields. This is the photo of the front of the house existing. Now looking on the easterly side of the property going into the backyard, I scan over and you can just a few photos showing the back of the house. We'll be talking about the extent of that deck as well. This is a photo looking at the crest of the bluff. Note that deck out at the bluff pre-exists zoning in that part of the TAM. Again, taking a look at the easterly property line, looking down to the bluff and the water. This is a photo taken at the top of the bluff, looking down. This property is Bulkhead. It has recently gone through a bulkhead restoration. Again, you can see some of the new grasses related to the crest of the bluff and the bluff, the bulkhead below. Photo looking west and at the deck extension there, as well as some of the neighboring properties. I'm going to have a couple of photos in later on showing what the neighborhood straight on, so you can see that. This is a photo, and I want the reasons I'm showing you this as we consider this application. I think it's important to relate to these neighboring houses when we look at the character of the neighborhood and the massing of the project. So there you go. See the house, the two existing house, and the house to the rest is to the right of this photo is the house in this application. Now that you can also see the house to the west and how it relates to the existing house. Again, scanning over to the west, you can see some of the other houses along the property lines here, the neighborhood. Taking a look down at the toward the west, you can see the bulkhead. The revetment that ends on this property line, which is continued by a bulkhead, as you can see here. And also, as noted in the TAM, there is no beach here. The water basically comes right to the bulkhead. Picture showing the planting of the beach grass as part of the bulkhead restoration. And that's the last photo I have.
Thank you, Roy. Board members, any questions?
Yes, I have one, Mr. Chair. In one of your earlier photos, it looked almost as if an area of the lawn had been sodded. It was a completely different color. Is that for any particular reason you could note, Roy?
You know, I would assume that would be part of the bulkhead restoration, maybe the repair of the work that went on there, because as the TAM relates, and we can ask the planning department a little bit more on that too. The TAM refers to the access on the east and west sides of this property to do that bulkhead restoration. So I would assume that it would be planting, but we can find out further.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions, board members? Okay, then we will go on to the applicant. I see we have Jim. Is Jim?
Yes.
Good evening. Jim McMullen, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board.
Jim, I'll go ahead and swear you in first, okay, Jim?
That'll be great.
Why don't you just introduce yourself, if you would, please?
Jim McMullen from Fleetwood and McMullen, 251 Panago Road.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
As I said before, my name is Jim McMullen from Fleetwood and McMullen. I'm the architect and agent for the applicant Lois and Phil Malinzak, 305 Kings Point Road. This property has been in Lois Malinzak's family since 1958, when her grandparents bought the property and built their family home. In 1966, there was a house fire and the house was lost, and then was rebuilt again in 1968. It remains the same today as it was from 1968. Our application is seeking relief to construct an addition and renovation to the existing residence. The variances required are all setback variances from the wetland and from the bluff crest. All other aspects of this project meet East Hampton Town Code. The first variance is a 17-foot variance for the porch, which is 83 feet from the wetlands, bulkhead, where 100 feet is required. This porch is being built over an existing deck and is planned to remain in its current location. The second through the fifth variances are from the bluff crest. These are a 28.9 foot variance for the same porch, which is 46.1 feet from the bluff crest, where 75 feet is required. This is for the proposed porch as well and is over the existing deck. The next variance is a 19-foot variance for the northwest corner of the house, which is 56 feet from the bluff crest, where 75 feet is required. And this is the portion of the house which is existing. And then the fourth variance is a 12-foot variance for the west side areaway, which is 63 feet from the bluff crest, where 75 feet is required. And this is for a basement areaway that is at grade level and is for legal fire and life safety egress for the basement. The final variance is 7-foot variance for the east areaway, which is 68 feet from the bluff crest, where 75 feet is required. And again, that is for legal fire and life safety egress. As a note, when designing this addition, we originally wanted a portion of the house to be in line with the existing deck, much further north than what we are presenting now. However, in talking to Brian Frank at the planning department, he recommended that we redesign the addition and to be in line with the northernmost bedroom wall of the house. In consideration of his recommendations, we shifted the addition an extra 4 feet to the south away from the bluff to align with the existing living room wall. Recently, the board granted the Malinzacks the right to construct their bulkhead in kind, which has since been completed. If you look at the site plan, you will see a swale that was created from Superstorm Sandy. The storm damage to the bulkhead at the point that every time it rained or nor'easter with waves coming over the bulkhead, more sand would be washed away. Since the reconstruction of the bulkhead has been completed, the bluff crest reconstruction has shifted it back to its original location prior to the storm, which in turn has increased the distance from the bluff crest to the house. And then it actually gives us more room and clearance for those basement areaways. So in reality, 3 of the variances needed are related to the existing portion of the house, the deck, and the corner of the house, and the other 2 are the 2 new basement areaways. If the board doesn't mind, I have a short letter from the Malinzacks, as well as 3 neighbors.
You know, Jim, we have all of those in the file and we've read them all.
Okay, great.
So maybe you might want to speak to something else because it might be more valuable to you.
Sure. With this, like I said, the variances that we're looking for, the 2 areaways are at grade level, so they don't impose height-wise to the neighbors. The other 3 are related to the corner of the existing porch and the existing corner of the house. So I think that's pretty much our application.
Well, thank you. We can have a little bit of a dialogue if you don't want. Maybe I just ask you before we even hear from the planning department and other board members, et cetera. With regard to the bulkhead and access for future work at the bulkhead, it looks like you all did very nice work, I must say, on the reconstruction. It looks like the vegetation is really doing well, which is great to see. All the more reason, if this is approved with a vegetated buffer, for that buffer to be there to protect your shorefront and protect the groundwater, obviously. So I wonder if you could address the access issue first, Jim, future access.
So in talking with Billy Mack, who did actually the work on the bulkhead, with the machinery that he uses, he would require 8.5 feet for the track machine to get past the house. We have an excess of 8.5 feet. So if for some reason we do need to address the bulkhead again, there still is enough room to get past the house. But regarding the bulkhead now, someone mentioned the difference in grass materials. The grass that looked like it was sod, that was the original lawn, and the area to the east was where the work was being done on the bulkhead.
Thank you. So thank you for that answer. But I imagine I want, if you're going to take into account load bearing caps and stuff with your sanitary system for that future machinery and if you needed it down the road.
Yes, he also said that there were precautions that they could take. They could put steel plates over it before they drove over these types of systems. So he didn't think there was any issue if he needed to get through there later on.
Okay, thank you, Jim. Board members, any questions for Jim?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I have a few. Jim, I want to understand a little bit more about that hatched area, approximately 500 cubic yards fill, disturbed vegetation. Is that to be done, or is that part of the bulkhead restoration?
The area that is hatched, that was the that kind of swale washout area that was created by Superstorm Sandy, and that was when it was built and then revegetated. That line kind of goes almost straight across the property, maybe.
Right, that's the way it looks like now. So that work has been completed, is that right?
Yes, it has. And as the chairman said, the beach grasses have really taken hold, and they're really getting thick now, which is great.
I'll also note that that Tyler will be bringing up a planning department sketch, which is interesting because it shows the current state of the bluff crest since that restoration, to Roy's point.
Mr. Chairman, which I think we're going to probably have a conversation about is how does that affect the variance, the variances now, and does that need to be flagged or whatever so we get the variances correct at this point? I don't know, but we can ask the planning department.
Yeah, thank you, Roy. Any other questions before we go to Tyler, board members?
I do. I have a question for Jim.
Sure.
Related to Jim, if you can, we showed photos of the houses adjacent and down the neighborhood. One of the things we consider is the character of the neighborhood. Now, can you just speak to the size of this house relative to the other houses and how it relates, or
Absolutely. This is probably one of the last, if you want to call it, fisherman cottages on this road. Most or almost all of these other properties along this stretch have been redeveloped or enhanced. As you can see from Mr. Delane's photographs, both neighbors, I think going 3 or 4 down on either side, have now 2-story houses and are relatively consistent, closer to the bluffs and stuff. Ours kind of sits back where our property juts out. So we do have a little more land on the water side. We intentionally took Mr. Frank's recommendations and put all the addition to the front or street side, as well as just to the side of the house, not to move any closer to the bluff crest.
Thank you. One more question is the TAM referred to the addition of a further bluff buffer. Are you amenable to having a buffer consistent with what the TAM is requesting?
I noticed that they were saying that they wanted beach grasses and wooded shrubs. I talked to my client. They would be fine with beach grasses, that 15-foot buffer with allowing a 4-foot wide path to get to the deck out by the water. She said that they haven't had real good luck with wooded plants, just because there's deer in that run up and down the beach and through the beach grasses there, and they just chew them apart. So I would ask that the board would let us maybe just do it with beach grasses.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Roy. And Jim, thanks. And we'll talk to Tyler. As you know, Jim, the reason we often want something is to impede lawnmowers and landscapers from just getting lower. But we can discuss that. We can discuss it. Let's move along to the planning department. Good evening again, Tyler.
Good evening, board. Tyler Borsak again for the planning department.
Go ahead, please, Tyler. Thank you.
Sure. So the subject property is located on the north side of Kings Point Road and Clearwater section of Springs. This parcel lies east of the Hog Creek Inlet on Gardner's Bay. Gardner's Bay provides all the benefits of high quality, deep and shallow water zones as defined by the Peconic Estuary Program. These benefits include deep water, open water for a variety of juvenile finfish. The parcel, as was mentioned, was before the board 2 years ago for the in-place in-kind replacement of that bulkhead. It was denied an 18-inch increase in the height of the bulkhead at that time, but they were allowed to replace the bulkhead as it was. The current application is for first and second story additions to the existing residence, including the first story porch and a second story deck on the seaward side of the residence. The proposed improvements are no closer to the bluff crest and bulkhead than the existing residence. The jurisdictional boundary for the structures from the bluff crest and the wetlands is roughly the proposed porch on the south side of the residence. The leaching components of the proposed sanitary system meet the 200-foot setback for new sanitary systems, so that's out of jurisdiction entirely, as well as the garage being out of jurisdiction. The proposed 2,495 square foot increase in gross floor area, it's a substantial expansion of the existing 868 square foot residence, nearly tripling the size of the existing residence. With the roughly 600 square foot garage located outside of the board's jurisdiction, the proposed building coverage is 225 square feet under the maximum allowable. The bulk of the additions are outside of setbacks from the natural features, and the board should discuss with the applicant why the additions couldn't be designed to observe the setbacks in their entirety, essentially removing that small area that is within setbacks. As the board discussed already, the planning department noted that the additions are going to be 10 feet from the side yard lot line, which could impede access to the seaward side of the property in order to do repairs to that bulkhead in the future. Access from the west side across the Clearwater Beach Homeowners Association parcel would be difficult because there is no beach along here, or very limited beach, even at low tide. So that could cause, be a cause for concern moving forward with future restoration work on the property. And additionally, as was already mentioned, the planning department recommends a 15-foot vegetated buffer from the bluff crest here. We would recommend a woody vegetated buffer to be established as mitigation, of course, allowing for a 4-foot path to access that existing decking and stairs. The 15-foot buffer would require approximately 1,500 square feet of vegetation, which would bring the property closer to the maximum allowable clearing, while not conforming to maximum allowable clearing, certainly reducing it closer to that number. We would recommend woody vegetation. It's important for both holding sand, establishing that bluff crest, and hopefully preventing it from slumping again in the future with storms, but also creating a natural native habitat. Woody vegetation is important for both of those things. As far as the bluff crest is concerned, I haven't been to the property that's that much. It wasn't my application originally, so I can't say whether the bluff crest has moved at all. Especially after restoration, I wouldn't want to speak on that. But as far as the board's concerned right now, this is the bluff line we're working with. We would need the applicant would need to do a new flagging and then a new verification in order to determine if it is shifted. But I don't think that's even too much of a discussion at this point. The board may want to discuss, though that the parcel is pre-existing non-conforming to residential clearing restrictions, if they would want more revegetation as well. Complete compliance would require 2,647 square feet of clearing or revegetation, I'm sorry, in order to bring it into complete conformance. While it's not a complete redevelopment of the parcel, it's fairly close to a redevelopment of the parcel, so with being such a large addition to the existing residence. So the question of how much revegetation would mitigate that level of development. We suggested 15 feet, but certainly slightly more would bring the property completely into conformity with maximum clearing. Other than that, I can answer any questions you might have.
I'll just ask one, and also to the applicant or the agent, to Jim, the agent, with regard to the clearing. Certainly, I think a 15-foot is minimum, and it is there is quite a bit of clearing, albeit pre-existing. But I wonder, Tyler and Roy, I can't recall from your site, if there are chances for the applicants to do some more revegetation along the sides of the driveway, other areas, or especially the closer to the water, the better. And maybe when we come back to Jim after the public comment, if there's any, we can discuss that a little bit more with Jim. But well, thank you, Tyler. That's what I'm looking for. Like on the right, like after the sanitary goes in, it seems like that might be a really good place. I mean, as you say, I feel it's about a 90% redevelopment, basically. I mean, you're leaving the frame walls of that small house. You're doing a new garage, new sanitary, new addition, second floor, decks, walkways, pretty much everything. So I'll leave that out there for now.
In that scenario, Mr. Chairman, with the possibility of rebuilding the bulkhead again in the future, then that vegetation would be removed and replaced?
I could see when that happens. If there was some vegetation and you had to, yeah, I mean, you would have to, if it was beach grasses or something, you'd have to go over that with your steel and your tracks, Roy. I was thinking, I'm guessing you'd have to replace that. Yeah. You know, hopefully they just rebuilt this bulkhead. I don't think they're going to need to be down there for maybe another, I don't know what, 15 or 20 years, maybe.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering if perhaps the planning department, if Tyler has maybe a recommendation for another area to make up the rest of that clearing as far as vegetating it.
Yeah.
Or a little bit longer buffer than 15.
I mean, yeah, certainly along the bluff crest would be ideal as far as revegetation is concerned. Over the sanitary system isn't the greatest spot. You can't do anything significant over that. Mm-hmm. That really leaves just essentially seaward of the residents at that point. And the rest of the property is fairly well proposed to be developed. Let me pull that sketch of the survey back up again. So, you know, this is all driveway in here, the sanitary system, house. So that really leaves up here for that remaining 1,000 square feet roughly.
So I agree, but I'm thinking just for additional that even, you know, back by the sanitary, I agree, Tyler, but instead of lawn that future owners may start fertilizing and, you know, if you have beach grass or something like that, that's not going to get fertilized. Certainly that's more healthy than having lawn in those areas, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. If the board has no more comments, LTV, Michael, do we have anyone in the public?
No, Chairman, there are no callers at this time.
Okay, thanks. Jim, a couple of comments?
Sure. You know, there is some areas along the property line by the garage and stuff that has all been left natural. The applicants have also planted evergreens along the neighbor's fence to the east. There was a line of I believe some
arborvitae or something. I saw them.
Yeah.
Leland cypress or something like that. Yeah. And if for some reason later on down the road there needed to be some work done on the bulkhead, we would be more than happy whatever we damage to replace and rebuild that kind of buffer area. As well as anything along, say, like the property lines.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. If you know, I mean, the written record is going to be left open, as you know, until 2 weeks after this is posted on the town website, the transcript of this meeting. So there's some time, and I just wonder if you might want to go back and talk to the applicants and. We don't need you to go to a surveyor, but maybe if you wanted to come back and show us what you may or may not be willing to offer to the application with regard to some other revegetated areas.
Absolutely. I will definitely talk to them. And if we can, we'll provide the board with a plan that's maybe not as busy as this one that would just designate areas for revegetation.
Right. And obviously, the more there is of that, the better the application you have as far as we're concerned. So thank you, Jim, for that.
Right.
Board members, anything else?
Mr. Chair, I would just say that the application is asking for a very considerable increase in size of the structure.
Mhm.
And I think that while it may seem to be somewhat incompatible with in the neighborhood, it's still a very large ask of the board. So I would encourage both Jim and the applicant to seriously consider what could be done in this revegetation effort, because I think that there seems to be a significant amount of lawn there, and anything can be done to preserve the bluff crest is always important to us. So I think we'll take that very much to heart when we see what recommendations or what offering we may get back from the applicant. That would be my observation.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. I agree. I mean, it is a big ask, and Jim knows that too, the square footage. I've looked at the plans and all. So I'll leave it at that as well, but thank you for that, Ed. Anyone else? Any other board members? No, okay, thanks. Roy, would you like to close this out then, please?
Sure, then I make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to close the public hearing, but leave the record open for until 2 weeks after it is posted for Philip and Lois Malenzek, located at 305 Kings Point Road, Suffolk Tax Map number 300-24-1-12.
Second that.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Okay. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, Tyler. And Jim, thank you, and have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move on, board members, on the agenda. Next, we go into the work session portion, and we have under post-hearing decisions, we have Gail Schoenfeld at 6 Livery Lane in East Hampton, tax map number 300-184-5-43. And Roy pinch hit it for Tim on the field report, but Tim is taking the lead on this East Hampton application. If you would go ahead, please, Tim.
Sure. Board members, you'll recall that this hearing was dated August 17th. Let me state for the record that I was not in attendance at that meeting, but I did review the video of this on LTV, in fact, several times, and I'm prepared to move forward this evening with the decision. Also wanted to thank Member Daleen for pinch hitting and doing the field report in my absence. The applicant, as noted, is Gail Schoenfeld at 6 Livery Lane in East Hampton, and the variance request here is a 300 square foot variance required from 255-1163, which is the very detailed provision within the town code related to affordable accessory apartments. The maximum allowable is 600 square feet, and the proposal is to construct 900 square feet. The applicant's agent indicated that there would be no exterior changes required to the property to approve this variance. Basically agreed with the observations in the TAM. Noted that the affordable accessory apartment in this case would be for the son, daughter, and newborn child. It would be an additional bedroom added, and a new kitchenette as part of this. They indicated no impacts on the neighborhood, and that all the conditions would be agreeable. There was some conversation during the hearing with regard to the septic system. There were questions as to the septic. It's currently a 3-bathroom septic, or this 3-bathroom home. They would be adding one here, and the I had Tyler take a look at the building records, and he indicated, based on his review, that it does look like the septic would be adequate. We had a lot of questions as a board related to whether or not this would be a precedent, as it is a 50% variance. And we searched for the uniqueness of this application. I should state for the record that I think we all know this family, and especially the applicant, who is a doctor. Hard to imagine that there are many folks in East Hampton that didn't come in contact with her at some point along the way with their children. And we certainly appreciate her service. I also know the family to be a good family in East Hampton. So we probably all know the family, and many of us have actually visited Dr. Schoenfeld with our kids. Having said that, there are several hurdles here, I think, that we have that are problematic. The first of which is that this is a 50% variance, 900 square feet versus 600 square feet. And in fact, that's by, I think, any definition, substantial. There were no mitigation offered as part of this application. And so that's a big hurdle, I think, for us to clear. In addition to this, during the hearing, it was noted that there's a problem on the survey. And by the way, the survey is dated March 2nd, 2021. With regard to clearing, it shows that the existing clearing is 20,819 feet, where 17,991 is allowable. So the property is almost 16% over cleared as it exists today. That was noted during the hearing. It really wasn't addressed. So I dug into 255-1163, which is the code that relates to affordable accessory apartments. Let me also say that I'm supportive of this. I think the town has an issue with affordable housing. I'm prone to be very, very positively inclined on this. I will say that provision of the town code is quite detailed. There are 9 pages associated with that. I read it several times. And there were a couple of things that stood out to me. Number one is that in at least 2 different occasions within the code, it specifically indicates that no more than 2 persons are permitted to reside in an apartment. And of course, we had testimony. In fact, I went back and listened to the recording twice, and the agent's applicant repeated it twice, that it would be a son, daughter, and newborn child. And from that perspective, I just don't think that this would be in keeping with what the town code specifically states. In addition, as I read through the code, it became pretty clear to me that there was some intent here, that the size of the apartment, which was listed to be not less than 300, but not more than 600 square feet, and the fact that there was a provision that limited the number of persons that could be there to no more than 2, matched up. It kind of makes sense that they specifically had in mind for this. Now, we could argue whether we think that's the best provision, the best language, or or whether or not that might be improved somewhere along the line. But that's not really in our purview here. Our purview is to interpret the code. And so when I put this together and I look at the fact that this would be a substantial variance of 300 square feet or 50%, that it on the record was stated that this will be 3 persons when the code specifically limits apartments to 2 persons. And the code also talks about there being no other problems associated with the code. So right now there would be an issue with the clearing. That of course could be cleared up were this to be approved. But as it stands right now, the property is not in compliance with town code. So for these reasons, I believe that it should be our view that this application be denied. And so my judgment on this one would be to deny the application.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tim, for that thorough analysis. Appreciate that. Let's see, Terry, you want to take a step? Take a pass?
Yeah, sure. I too looked at the code also, the 255-1163, and saw the same things that member Brenneman already pointed out about the 1 bedroom, only 2 people. It seems that in this property, there are alternatives available where they could make the affordable apartments smaller if necessary. But it also stated, I think, in that code along the way that only 1 bedroom is allowed in each accessory affordable apartment. And then going back to the TAM and the fact that there have been no variances given for this at all. I am in agreement with member Brenneman, and the 600 feet, which seems very precise in the code. They also, when the town code lowered the property, I think the lot size of the property that could have an accessible affordable apartment, they were very clear in their intent that the 600 foot was going to be the maximum. And that they changed that code as far as the lot size. They could have it a few years ago. I think it was maybe 2018, but they did not make any adjustment in the maximum size of an affordable accessory apartment. So I too am going to deny this variance request.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry. Roy, Vice Chair Dolin?
Sure, Mr. Chairman. I too am, I want to say that I'm sensitive to this issue regarding affordable housing. However, on this particular case, I want to bring up a couple of issues. The applicant made this is going toward the argument of precedent. Applicant made the argument that number one, there would be no physical difference in the exterior of the house, which I agree with. And the other point that they were trying to stress related to precedent is that the fact that there is room in the basement to expand and would be able to have us grant the variance. I don't find that either one of those reasons rises to the level of us granting this variance as our other 2 members have laid out eloquently. I think it leads, if we were to grant this, it would lead us to make an arbitrary and subjective approval of this request based on precedent and what's going for, because there is room in the basement, could also lend itself to be a basement of any time. We brought that up in the hearing, and I just want to reiterate that as far as that being important to my decision. I too agree that this should be a denial.
Okay, thank you, Roy. Ed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank Member Brenneman for his thorough analysis and bringing up many of the points that I think most of us agree with. I too want to state that we all have known Dr. Schoenfeld, and that she's a contributor in the community, and all of us with children have spent many hours coming and going. And while I fully appreciate that, I looked at this really from the perspective of precedent. We talk about and we get asked about precedent a lot, and I think it's true that for many cases there really is no precedent. Every single site is different, and we have different ways to look at the conditions when people ask for pools or ask for fences or whatever they ask for. And I think individually, whatever we decide on one is not necessarily going to influence another decision. However, following up on what Vice Chair Deline said, basements exist under many houses in this town. I think the analysis that we got from Member Brenneman about the logic of the town code holding it to 600 square feet for many reasons, the one with the single bedroom and the two applicants, to see that this was not something that got out of hand. There was some logic there in that. And if in fact we should be thinking about expanding it to 900 feet, I don't think that's our job here to allow for it just because we think it's possibly a good idea. So for me, it was clear that if we did this and we suddenly took it on ourselves to allow for this large variance, we opened the door to lots of other applicants who, unlike many other situations when we talk about the exterior and the exact setting of a house in an environment or in a topography, here I think we'd see a repetitive condition many times. I don't think that there's an awful lot of difference in many good-sized basements that couldn't easily afford to allow 900 square feet of space for an apartment. And that's what I came back to the more I looked at this and the more I reasoned it, that I don't think that this board is in the position to allow this based on simple need and to potentially open that door for a precedent for future applications. So I'm in agreement with my board members, and although I have great sympathy for the conditions that led to the applicant requesting this, I think that under these circumstances, I will look to deny this application.
Okay, thank you very much, Ed. It sure is great working with such fine board members, because I could repeat things, but I would just be repeating what my fellow board members had said. Is, you know, especially, we certainly do appreciate all of our doctors and our people involved with the fire department and the ambulance, etc. We certainly do appreciate them for their service. But we all know that zoning is not a personality issue here, and we don't make determinations based on the character of the applicants. And you all have laid it out. I agree 100%. I appreciate the thoroughness, so I'm not going to repeat all except for that. I agree with you completely. So let's see, council, we good on that?
Got everything I need. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Tim, for your work on that. Thank you, board members. Okay, we'll move on next. We have Joseph M. Tantillo at 39 Gainsborough Court in Montauk, tax map number 300-19-4-27.2. And let's see. Ed, is this yours? I can't recall. I apologize.
No, it's mine.
Oh, Terry, yours.
Mhm.
Thanks, Terry.
Oh, okay. All right, so this was located at in Montauk at 39 Gainsborough Court with Joseph Tantillo. It's a relatively small parcel at 17,168 feet, and the relief requested was for 8.8 feet to allow a patio to remain 8.8 feet from the side yard where 10 feet is required, and a variance from the pyramid regulations to allow a roof overhang on a patio to remain 2 feet 2 inches beyond the relative height restriction. So this application did get a little bit messy on it. The variances requested are not outrageously large. This is the survey, and you can see the 8.8 foot variance for the patio. What happened on this property was that back in 2018, there was a building permit issued to construct a 600 square foot detached garage with an attic, no plumbing, rafters, etc. That was back on August 2nd of 2018. They got a building permit. May 22nd of 19, there was a stop work order for work being done without a building permit. And then following all the way through till February 10th of 2020, there was a renewal done and of that original building permit for the garage. At the same time, there was an additional building permit granted by the building department, 69022, to legalize French doors, which was part of the reason, I believe, for the stop work order on the garage. And in addition to that, there was for a 672 square foot patio, 432 square feet covered porch over it, and 255 square foot addition to the patio. So what it appears happened with the application that we have received, we got this survey that's in front of us on the screen, which is dated May 1st, 2020, and it clearly shows the 8.8 foot on the side near the patio with the covered porch overhang on it. The 8.8 feet is for the patio itself, where there's a bar at that portion of it. And at the same time, we received a building plan from Benko Construction, who was the contractor. And for the application, we received a plan that showed a date of May 14th, 2018 on it, that we received on December 3rd, 2020. And on this was the plan submitted with the application for the variances. And the agent for the applicant was Andrew Strong. And his explanation on what happened was taking that when the garage was built under the permit from 2018, that the front of the garage was at these levels here of 12.5 feet from the property line, but at the back of the garage, because of the property line not being a straight line front to back, it meandered. That in the back, the actual setback for the garage ended up in a slightly different location, and that it was a mistake on the contractor's part. We did get a letter from Benko Construction saying, in fact, that the crew that was out there to do the garage inadvertently made a mistake. And then when the permit was issued for the patio and the roof patio, it ended up by the plan, instead of being in compliance with the setback from the side yard, it ended up being 8.8 feet from that. Now you can see on the plan here that was submitted, it looked like everything was going to be compliant. And in fact, it turned out that the measurements at the back were closer to the property line than anticipated or shown on the plan. In addition to that, this little corner of the overhang of covering the patio pierced the pyramid line as a result of that same miscalculation or misconstruction, as it were. So, we're back to, a contractor error or crew error. There was some confusion on this, and the document we're looking at now, as I said, was dated 2018. The planning department also had another document, very much a mock-up of this one, that was actually dated 2019 5/14/19, although the one on the screen is the one that was submitted with the application. So, I don't know why there are varying matters on it. The numbers are slightly different, but the bottom line is still the same, that the garage was constructed where it ended up being closer to the property line in the rear than anticipated. So with all that said, the variances are small. They're 2.2 for the side yard variance for the patio, and the 2 feet 2 inches for that small portion of the overhang for the patio. And in addition, so that I think both variances, I'm looking to approve them. In the hearing, the agent for the applicant also agreed to covenant that they would maintain shrubbery and along the property line, between the property line and the neighbor to the, I guess that's southwest direction, and covenant that they will maintain the shrubbery and the screening from that neighbor. It already is pretty well screened, but they are willing to covenant that will remain that way in perpetuity. So I am looking to approve it. I think the variances are relatively small. And I think it was an unfortunate occurrence, but something, I guess, that was unforeseen. I do wonder if we should have the license review board, look at this particular contractor. We weren't sure if they're licensed in the town of East Hampton, or if that's something that would be, for the license review board to review.
Gary, just to let you know, the licensing review board only has jurisdiction for a year after the construction is completed. So once the construction is completed, if it's been a year, they cannot take any complaints after that point.
Okay. All right. So that looks like it's been a year, I guess. All right. But anyway, I am looking to approve it, little reluctantly, but approve it because the variances are not outrageously large.
Okay, thank you, Terry. This being in Montauk, Ed, some comments, Ed, from you?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got to say that there's an awful lot that bothered me about the paperwork around this, these drawings. We received a drawing to analyze. It was not a survey, but it was from Benco Construction, and I questioned whether the numbers were fully accurate. There is a survey that was associated with the application that did verify the 8 foot 8 inches, and they got their numbers from that. Trying to get to the bottom of where did the mistake happen was part of my consideration of considering this application. I think we said at the time of the hearing that the garage was, in my opinion, misset wherever it was placed, so that there was an assumption. There's this straight line of the property line, but it is not parallel to the building. It means that if somebody were to take a number at the front of the building, it would appear there was a lot of room to allow for the work to be done without triggering a variance, need for a variance. But in point of fact, since it was not parallel, and it is not parallel, as we can see here, it did trigger that. I don't know how that was not seen a lot sooner by somebody along the way, including the construction, the contractor on the job, or the client looking at their own. And there was an effort here to get a building permit, and none of this seemed to have triggered a stoppage until we were underway. So all of that aside, I will agree with some of what was said by Member Berger, in that these are not large asks in terms of what we're looking for in the variance. I guess 2.2 inch, 2 feet 2 inches on for a pyramid, and 2'4" in terms of a side yard setback. And This is a very heavily vegetated line. I think we had that in the photos at the time of the hearing. I've been on the site, and it's very, very heavily vegetated. There's obviously a great screening. I got to say that I'm bothered by it, but I will tend to agree with my board member and agree it, knowing that the covenant will protect what's gone on here on the corner, and knowing that there's nothing that can be done at this point, as council has advised us about checking into the competency of the contractor here. I don't think there's much we can say in that area, and I'm going to approve this, but with certain reservations about how both the contractor and the applicant went about engaging in this project from the beginning. But as a bottom line, yes, I'm willing to approve it based strictly on the fact that they will covenant that hedge that will protect any neighbor in the future from how close to the property they actually are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ed.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I just
sure.
have a comment.
Yeah.
I think I said 2 feet for the variance for the side yard, but that's 1.2 feet.
Mm-hmm.
I made them both the same, but that's not true. It's 1.2 feet for the side yard variance.
Okay, thank you, Terry. Roy, as a 25-year, I believe, chair of the licensing review board, I think we should go to you next.
Yes,
If you please, Roy.
And I will school you a little bit about the licensing code, if you will.
If you would. Could you turn your volume up a little bit, Roy? Would you mind, just so
Yeah,
people at home can hear?
All right, sure. Hopefully that's fine. But
Great.
the licensing code, which I'm very familiar with, does not give in order for a complaint to be filed, it has to be filed by the owner of the property. So I don't think we as a board can defer cases to the licensing review board, but I do think that we can advise an applicant that they have that ability to use that avenue to pursue a complaint. So that I just want to get out there. I agree with my other board members. I think this is, I think there's a contractor error, of course, but I also think there's an error when with the building department permit, because I believe there was discussion about there was no measurement on the backside of that. I think there's just a case of errors, and I agree with the board that we should approve this application.
Okay, thank you, Roy. Tim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to my fellow board members. I agree. I have some of the same reservations. We've dealt with several builder errors here over the last several months, and I think it's important that when we get these, that we differentiate them as respects to our decisions. And in this case, I think it's been well framed. The variances are nominal. This is a well-screened area, and the applicant is willing to do the CNR to maintain that screening. And so, to me, that provides the mitigation to offset what are relatively small, admittedly sloppy, but very small variance requests. And so as a result of that, I am looking to approve it.
Okay, thank you very much, Tim. And board members, thank you for your analysis. I once again agree with what you all have said. And one of the reasons, along with, as Terry Berger says, that it's not a very large variance. It is frustrating. It's annoying. This kind of stuff. Anyone could come up with a million different stories. So, we, as board members, we have to be careful with these sort of variances based on contractor error. I will say, with regard to some of the standards, with regard to the neighborhood, though, the one thing about it, it appears to me to be very well built, and aesthetically, I think aesthetically it works well. So that is helpful along with the landscaping. So I too would be going along here to approve this variance request. Council, anything else? Oh, you're muted.
I have all that I need. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Terry. Okay. Next, we will move on. I believe we have Michael Agello at 19 Fenwick Road in Montauk, tax map number 300-19-8-22.1. And this is in Terry's hands, I believe, Terry, correct? But before I hand it over to you, Terry, I just want to remind those listening that in the background, as backup, that this board sent the applicant on August 2nd, 2021, a letter requesting clarification of the history of the project and of their applications. And we have received a response from the applicants. So Terry, you want to pick it up from there for now?
Yeah, actually, well, we have quite an extensive file. If you
Yeah.
recall this was, hang on, I've got to grab some papers. Yeah, this was this is a Jello. Yes. That this was an approval, an original permit for 19 Fenwick Road, for a natural resources special permit and some variances for the applicant to make some construction changes at 19 Fenwick Road. The applicant also owned property on Fairview Avenue or Fairview Road, yes, in Montauk. And in 2015, they came in to apply and received an approval for determination that merged the 19 Fenwick Road and the Fairview Road properties into one. Since that time, though, there has been not much activity. There was some work on a pool house done at the Fenwick Road part of the property, and nothing really additional since then. And this was a request for an extension of time for the Fairview. I think this one was for the Fenwick Road property, but the 2015 determination and approval to merge the lots, which also effectively would eliminate some variances required on the Fairview property. The applicant was he was kind of asking for extensions of time on both locations anyway. So in order to review this, we did get an analysis from Brian Frank, and that they did some construction, but that there was, they needed basically in the letter to advise this board as to where they were going from here. Whether they were going to abandon the 2015 determination or the 2007 determination. And then I saw in our mail today, that late today, we got a letter from the agent, Joel Halsey, that the applicant wants to move forward with the determination from 2015. So this is for an extension of time. I guess now that we got that letter, it came in rather late today, that we will approve the extension of time. However, I also want council to help advise us on how we eliminate, I guess, the 2007 determination and get that totally off the records, and move forward with the determination from 2015. Aside from the extension of time, is there anything else we can do to kind of get this back in order and moving forward?
Well, so long as there's no, they're abandoning by this letter their request for an extension of time on the the 2007. So that application is null at this point. Because
Okay.
yeah, so that one's null. And theoretically probably was abandoned by bringing the new application after that. And because generally subsequent applications do make the, do become the new history of the property, and you usually don't have more than one option. But I don't know if that was made clear at the time that they made the second application. And so we kind of gave them a chance to clarify that, and they have, and they want the newer, or they would like to proceed more closely to the second.
Yeah.
They aren't actually on target for the second approval, but that's the framework that they want to pick this up.
Nancy Lynn, Terry, if you just don't mind if I jump in for a second here, Nancy Lynn, it seems to be another option for this board is, as we know, the applicants with all of the zoning that's been going on with this property, they went ahead and built a pool house, not in the same location, without a building permit. That's public record. And it seems to me that perhaps this board, and I'm asking you, could simply deny the extension of time. I mean, basically, I would like to see this come back as a new application. We need new surveys. There's
the
things that were
question
built
here,
without permits and
right.
maybe, go ahead.
The question, well, you really have, as I see it, a couple options. Obviously, you could just renew it, and then they have to build it pursuant to what their approval was and move things around in order to be in compliance, which seems probably the least likely thing to have happened, since I believe the pool house isn't even close to where it was supposed to be, and precludes the garage going where it's supposed to be. So the second option is to just deny it completely and make them start over with a new application.
Mhm.
However, with the work that's already been done by the planning department on this, a third option is to give them a deadline to put in a complete, more detailed motion for a rehearing, and kind of stay the issue of extension until that's in, to see if there is a viable option. Obviously would need a survey. That's why you'd have to give them a little bit of time to get that in, to how are they going to fix this so it can be considered in the context of the approval that they say they most closely want to follow. So, obviously they'd have to make, it would need to be a rehearing, because they need to modify the approval that they have received. But it would allow, at least for the planning department, to use the information that they've already started on it, so that they're not starting at ground zero with a new application. But those are the three options.
Right.
We could start all new. We could, give them an extension of time, but clearly they can't get any building permits based on it, so they'd have to come in for a rehearing anyway. But they would be able to keep what's kind of there, or it would preclude us while it was an approval from really doing any kind of enforcement action for what they've built incorrectly. Or you could deny it outright and start the procedure with referral to code enforcement, and they would have to come in with a brand new application.
All right, thank you. And just to finish my comment, then I'll go back to Terry. But thank you, counsel, for that, because I mean that's exactly my point. Is when somebody knows zoning so well, and they've gone out and they've haven't even gotten a building permit of putting things where they want and not per what the approvals, it seems like they shouldn't be offered any favors. I appreciate the code enforcement issue. At least it's on the radar, so that they're compelled to get a new application submitted. So that would be my concern, that it just doesn't go out there, we deny it, and then they sit on it and enjoy using it for 3 years while other people are going through the right process to get variances. So Terry, I'll stop talking and back to you,
Yeah,
please.
well, my concern with starting all over, if you look at the 2015 determination, it's huge, it's very extensive. I guess if we could rectify it without a brand new application all over and maybe do the rehearing. I kind of like that idea, get a rehearing on it and an updated survey, as-built survey. And I don't know if apparently also nothing happened in the way of whatever has to be done in order to merge the two lots.
Exactly. There's a lot of unknowns, but I'll go ahead.
Yes.
Let's run around the board. Let's take a temperature around the board. There's a lot of options here. Tim?
Mr. Chairman, if you'd like me to share my screen at all, I have the aerial up here. You can see a little bit of the existing conditions.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Wouldn't mind offering a couple of comments too, if I can.
Council, is that fine if Brian just gives us a little background of what was constructed here?
Yeah, I believe all of this is relevant for making your decision as to whether or not it is too complex in deciding which option to go with. So that's fine.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Brian. Go ahead, please. We appreciate that.
So this aerial is from earlier this year. These are the two lots, if you want to look at them that way. This, as Member Berger had mentioned, this property did have an application or an approval for a single-family residence and sanitary system in 2007. In 2015, the merger application was to allow structures that were built also without appropriate permits on the Fairview Avenue property that would otherwise need side yard variances. It would allow them to remain. The garage was approved kind of in this area here, and the pool house behind it. The application, the information that you got today was really very brief. It just said they'd like to keep the 2015 permit valid. This is where the pool house has been built, and in GIS, the measuring tool is pretty good, but lot lines don't line up perfectly. And using the measuring tool here, it is possible that the pool house is less than 10 feet from both of these property lines. It may need side yard variances. You're really only going to know with a survey. And really, I think if you really want to assess the viability of the 2015 decision, you need to get a much more substantive submission from the applicant. You need building plans for the structure. You need a survey. Be good to know if there's plumbing in there or a bathroom. The determination did require mitigation in the form of revegetation in this area of the property. It's not visible, but this is in part where the wetland is. It's a stream or a ditch, if you want to call it that, but it's a surface water course that runs to the east of the property. And the board did want to buffer back in this area as a result of it. And that kind of segues into what Member Berger was saying about what would be necessary to effectuate the conditions of that 2015, including the merger. So the planning department is supportive of the concept of a rehearing if these outstanding issues can be addressed in a relatively short amount of time. It may be that it's impractical. You may find out that the pool house is bigger in size. It may need multiple variances that weren't part of the original determination. There's just not enough information that's been submitted on behalf of the property to make that assessment now. So if you were willing to give them a finite amount of time to do that, a survey, building plans, address the outstanding mitigation, that may be a shorter path to resolving this than sending it back to the beginning with a new application. But it should be noted that the board may not have the flexibility to address this if it requires a significantly different relief than what was originally granted.
Well, thank you, Brian, for that, and that addresses what I was concerned about, is things going on for a year or two. So thank you for those comments. Board members, Roy?
I was leaning more towards an outright denial, but hearing Brian's recommendation, I could go along with that. I don't, for as far as a time, extending a time, I don't see it happening shorter than a 6-month period of time. I'm not sure, but I don't know how they can get this, all this information to us with plans and drawings and stuff in a period of time, 4 months maybe, but it's not going to be 2 months.
Yeah, I agree. Ed?
Well, Mr. Chair, I have to agree with much of what's been said. I'm particularly appreciative of Brian Frank's comments. There are a lot of moving parts here, and I would agree with the vice chair that my feeling was that this should be an outright denial at first, because we have buildings in the wrong spot. We don't have a survey. There's just too much going on here to allow them to move forward. However, given the advice that we've heard, and I appreciated your comments, Mr. Chair, about looking towards a rehearing, I think we have to have a good deal more information before we can move forward. All those things that were suggested, the exact location of this pool house, all of these questions are raised in my mind. So I would be looking for us to, request or require rather that we get as much information back up here, starting with a survey, so we can make an informed decision. I don't feel like there's enough information now for us to in any way give them an extension of time.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. Tim?
Yeah, I'll be honest. This is a hard one to determine what the best path is to get the result that we're looking for, which is really just resolution to what the existing conditions are. I'll go along with the recommendations. I still wonder if denial isn't our best path here, but I'll go along with what's been recommended.
Well,
Yeah.
one option is to give them a shorter time period to kind of give a pitch of what they would do. Obviously, they wouldn't have all the building plans. They would hopefully be able to get a survey within that period of time of what's there, and kind of do a pitch to show why it should, still stay active, giving maybe a 6 to 8 week rather than, a final ready to go to hearing packet. That's still an option that might, kind of split the baby here, to give you some sense of what they're envisioning, and if it's so different than what was originally approved, then at that point you can still deny, and they have to come back for a full hearing, a new application.
So, Nancy Lynn, thank you for that. I wanted to just ask, so I was sort of thinking as an option, something similar, I believe, whereby we would simply, as you're saying, would we be writing another letter, giving them maybe 8 weeks to come back with just what you just listed so well. And that way we're really kind of tabling it for 8 weeks, and we're not giving them an extension, nor are we even giving an opinion on the rehearing. Is that correct? Would you see it working out that way?
Yes, that would be that they've got 8 weeks to kind of have a halfway decent proposal. Maybe not all of the elements, in a format of building plans or the like, but for then the extension of time to be able to be considered at that point. And then when they're ready with what their proposal would be for the rehearing, submit that, and at that point consider the rehearing then, and then be able to go forward with a public hearing on a public rehearing.
Mm-hmm. Or not, right?
Or not.
Or a new application. So my opinion would be to take that route there, board members. Now that's sort of new. How do you feel about that? We'll just run around the table. It's like a new, Terry, how do you feel about
I'm
that?
sort of getting convinced that we should deny the whole thing.
Yeah,
And,
Which is still an
you know,
option.
I'm looking
Maybe-
at the, I'm
maybe
looking
we're
at the
being too-
determination
yeah.
with all the items that are in.
Yeah, yeah.
And
you know,
it's
if you all feel that way, I
incredibly
could easily go that route myself. I don't feel we should be doing favors here whatsoever. My problem is I don't want this to just be off for 3 years, but I would be fine with denying it all and going to code enforcement, and that way it's on the record and it has to be dealt with. But I'm sorry, let's go. Tim, Tim, you were nodding your head.
I'm still in favor of denial.
Okay. Roy?
I think the 8 weeks to see their intention and to see existing conditions, which I think we need to see, is a reasonable request. Therefore, we can make that decision to deny or not, or whether other options later. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Ed?
Yeah, I think the argument that you've made, Mr. Chair, that we wouldn't want to deny it and have it go away for 3 years is one got to be considered. My gut is, along with members Renneman and Berger here, to deny it because there's just so much going on. But if we can keep it on the radar and have it come back up to us in 8 weeks for the chance to, at that point, if we're not satisfied, deny it, but maybe get enough information to get a little more clarity, then I would agree with the vice chair that that does not bother me as an option. I can accept that.
Okay, thank you. Well, I feel the same way, Ed, and I could easily deny this, but for the only reason I'll go along with Ed and Tim on this 8 weeks is so that we don't lose it off the radar for 2 to 3 years, and we can deal with it in the 8 weeks. So, Council, hopefully you can help me draft a letter to the applicants nicely.
Yes, Brian and I have already put our heads together if that was an option you wanted, and we'll have an outline for you before Brian takes off for a few days.
Great. And can the board see, can we share that with the whole draft with the board, Nancy Lynn? Is that appropriate or is it not necessary?
Yeah, no, we can do that. Yeah, that's not
Okay.
a problem. Just to
Brian,
make
thank
sure
you.
that, yeah, it matches what you guys were, that it reflects this discussion.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you all board members for that discussion, and Nancy Lynn and Brian, thanks for your work on this as well. We'll move on. Next, we have Nigel Curtis at 393 Cranbay Hole Road, Narragansett, tax map number 300-128-1-28.2, and this is a discussion of the FEIS, the final environmental impact statement. So, Council, before we get going for our thousands of viewers at home, do you want to give the public and an update of where we are here? I don't want to misspeak on the secret process, if you please.
Sure. We obviously this has been in the process of a secret review, which has several specified steps that need to be done. We've not to go too far back in time. But I think that we filed a notice of completion of the draft EIS, which did have some deficiencies with it, but that was done in May of this year, was done, and then after that we had a public hearing on the draft EIS, and at this point, we are at the stage where we need to file a notice of completed final EIS. And we are looking to do that filing within the time period and have it done at our meeting of October 5th, which is our next meeting. So what the final EIS is really just a compilation of the environmental issues that were first raised in the scope that this board adopted a final scoping, which are the concerns that may come up with regards to this project, and gave the applicant sufficient time to address all of those. The final EIS has those, how they've been addressed by the applicant. It also includes concerns that our planning department has with regards to it. It also will include, public comments, any written public comments that came in and the like. That is then filed, and that's the final, basically, what are the questions that this board is going to have to consider? What are the concerns this board has to consider when making the final SECRA findings, which will be due within 30 days of filing of this final EIS. So the findings, SECRA findings, obviously are, will be whether or not it's a positive finding and that the project can go forward, or a negative finding that the project cannot be approved because there are too many negative issues with regards to the environmental concerns for this to even be approved. That finding of either positive or negative can be done also at the same time that you consider the application itself. But it can also be done separately as long as SECRA is done first. And if it is a positive SECRA, then you can consider the application, approve the application. But if it is a negative SECRA finding, you're precluded from approving any application. It's prohibited under SECRA. So you may, the way we have set up right now is the schedule that we have is for the final EIS to be filed, as I said, on October 5th, and then at our next work session in November, for there to be the discussion with regards to your SECRA findings and filing those in November.
Thank you so much, Nancy Lynn. Excuse me, and thank you for your work on this. And Brian Frank, thank you for all of your work on the application and your handiwork here as well on this. This is in my Amagansett district, so I will speak first on this. Again, my appreciation for you too. I think we all, without repeating the history of this application as board members, it's very clear to us. And this has been a long haul. But we do have what I consider is we do have a fine document here, something that I can certainly hang my hat on when it comes to making decisions. And granted that this is a draft and there will be certain the final additions and compilations put together. But I went through this several times very carefully, and again, appreciate the work here. And I feel this addresses the issues at hand, and considering also what we did and did not receive from the applicants, that was part of this whole procedure here. So I do not have any corrections myself, nor suggestions for additions or deletions on this. So let's go around the board. Vice Chair Deline?
I agree, Mr. Chairman. I believe the document is well put together. It's comprehensive, and I think it is consistent, if you will, with what we've been going through with this application. So I do agree. I have no additions.
Okay, thank you. Ed? Oh, you might be muted. You're muted, Ed. Sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I'm in agreement with both the chair and the vice chair in their assessment of the document. I'm very appreciative of the work that was done by Brian Frank in trying to get this document pulled together. I know it's been a long haul for us all on this one. I think that it was particularly important to have some of the areas that were not addressed by the applicant dealt with by Brian Frank, and I think he did do that. And I feel, as both of you do, that I'm prepared to use the document now in order to help us reach a decision on our final decision on this particular application. So I have no corrections to add or additions at this time. I'm very satisfied with what I read through on this document. As we have it.
Thank you, Ed. Terry?
Yeah, I agree with my fellow board members. I've gone through the document, all the notes that I had written down based on the hearing and the correspondence from the applicant. I think Brian got it all covered very nicely. And I appreciate all his work on this. So I'm in agreement on that, that the document looks good.
Thank you, Terry. Tim?
Yeah, same here. I've found this to be a very educational process to go through. So this is kind of our first time through this. I look forward to seeing it to conclusion here. But I do think that we have a very comprehensive document to work from. So I'm in agreement.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, board members. And again, Brian, thank you. And thank you, Brian, for your service with the emergency services. I know you're on duty tonight, so if you have to hit the road, Brian, feel free to do so, okay?
Thanks. I don't turn into a pumpkin for a little while yet.
Okay,
I'm okay.
okay. Thank you, Brian. Okay, council, are we good on that then?
Yes, we'll have, we'll circulate, Brian and I will circulate the final packet that will be the official, similar to the official packet that we did with filing the notice, so that you can, by resolution, I'll draft a resolution adopting that for filing and giving the next timetable as far as the next options or next stages.
Thank you, Nancy Lynn, for all of that clarification. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on the agenda. Next, we have Jerry Tepidino at 117 Central Avenue in Amagansett, tax map number 300-176-02-1. And this is a motion for a rehearing. Tyler, can you just brief the board on the fencing, on the issues at hand, very brief, if you wouldn't mind?
Sure, absolutely. So this was in front of the board not long ago. Excuse me. They got approval from some decking and some walkways around the property. They need to modify the original approval to allow this fencing that goes around most of the property. It gets extremely close to wetlands on the east side of the property. However, I think that's things that I think the applicant's willing to work with. But for the purposes of tonight, it's just a motion to have that hearing in order to discuss it and decide if the board's okay with it. In my memo, I mentioned that maybe just, the northern and eastern sides would be appropriate, and the southern and western sides probably aren't really appropriate. But that's besides the point for tonight's purposes. It's just tonight. It's just for the purposes of having another hearing.
Right, and thank you, Tyler, for your work on this. So this is in my district again of Amagansett, and again, as Tyler notes, we don't have to make decisions or any of that tonight, nor do we have to discuss it. But I am fine with this going forward for a rehearing. So with regard, I will make a motion with regard to 117 Central Avenue in Amagansett, the Jerry Tepidino application for a motion for a rehearing, that this rehearing move forward. Do I have a second, or do you all agree? I should have asked.
I'll second it.
I concur.
I'll concur then.
Terry?
I'll concur.
Okay, thank you. Next time we can poll the board, because we do, council, I believe we need a full majority, a full consensus, correct?
It has to be unanimous for a rehearing.
Unanimous is the word I was looking for. Thank you. So thank you, board members. Next time I'll check. Okay, moving forward, we have extensions of time. We have AFMP at 404 Old Montauk Highway in Montauk tax map number 300-22-1-4. I believe some construction has commenced here. And I wonder, Brian, if you could just give the board a quick kind of update here, if you would, please. Brian Frank.
Sure, Mr. Chairman. The planning department had been out there recently. If you're familiar with this property, you've seen it fairly recently. It's out on Old Montauk Highway, east of the ranch, near the terminus of the road. It's this property highlighted in blue. There was an approval for a single-family residence and sanitary system in this portion of the property. It was back a couple of years ago for a modification to move the sanitary system. That modification was granted. The planning, in that modification, it was noted that some clearing had occurred on the property. There was an accessory structure that was built without approval that they removed. They revegetated in accordance with an approved plan. They had met all the conditions for a building permit earlier in the summer, installed both sediment control and safety fencing, the 4-foot safety fencing, and are eligible for a building permit. There really isn't a reason to not extend the permit. I'm not sure how much work has been initiated since I was there in, I think it was July. They were just getting prepped for it then.
Okay, thank you for that, Brian. Appreciate that. Terry, this was in your, I believe, Terry, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm okay with granting the extension of time. I have Brian's memo and have read it. So I'll make a motion for AFMP at 4040 Montauk Highway in Montauk, tax map 300-022-01-04 to approve the extension of time.
I'll second it.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Terry, and thank you, Brian. Okay, we will move forward now. I believe there are no more extensions. So we'll move forward next with the minutes approval for the draft minutes of September 21st, 2021. I have read these and they looked fine to me. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I read them also. They look good to me also. I'll make a motion. So I make a motion to approve the draft minutes for September 21st, 2021 for the East Hampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals.
I'll second.
I concur.
I'll concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you. Thank you, Terry. Okay, next we will move along to the resolutions. We have Christine Murphy at 257 East Lake Drive in Montauk, tax map number 300-13-1-13 and 19. And Ed, this is in board member Ed Johans, Montauk District. Ed, do you want to start us off on that, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. If you could pick that up, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. The board will remember that the hearing for this application was on August 3rd, 2021, and that the decision was rendered in a work session at 9/14/21. This is the property on East Lake Drive, 257 East Lake Drive. We had considerable discussion about it. This is a property where there was a considerable amount of construction that was not in keeping with the initial approval of 2 years ago. After a discussion about what had gone on in terms of the type of construction and the amount that happened that went beyond the approval, we were all in agreement, 5 of us, to deny this application. In terms of the resolution, I did have a comment today with council, and a small correction was made. And so based on that, and having read the correction that was given back to me by council, I would like to make a motion to accept, in the case of Christine Murphy, 257 East Lake Drive, Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-13-01-13 and 19. I'd like to make a motion to accept the resolution as written.
A second.
I concur.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you. And thank you, Ed. Okay, next we'll move on to Patricia McCarthy at 21 Reuter Place, Oceanside at Montauk, tax map number 300-31-3-24. And Terry, I believe if you start something.
Yeah. So Patricia McCarthy, 20 Reuter Place. If you recall this, it was a house, a pre-existing house originally, and that had required about 12 variances, I believe it was, mostly for things that have been in place for a number of years and a few decades. Ultimately, this was an approval, unanimous approval by the board. If you recall, there was a buffer offered on this property, as well as a scenic easement to protect the wetlands. This was the application, the home that actually had, at the beginning of ditch plains and zoning, had a water course running through the center of it, which was moved legally in order for construction to be made at this house originally. So we did approve the application unanimously, conditioned on a 10-foot buffer for this applicant. So for Patricia McCarthy at 21 Reuter Place in Montauk, tax map 300-31-3-24, make a motion to approve the resolution as written.
I'll second it.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Terry. Okay, next we have Gori Orakandi Edlick and Alexander Edlick at 40 Roxbury Lane in Westwood, Wainscott, tax map number 300-197-6-1. And this is in Board Member Brenneman's Wainscott District. Tim, if you would, please.
Sure. The board will recall that this was a variance request in Wainscott for a residence to remain 758 square feet over the maximum allowable gross floor area. Most notably because of what was alleged to be a builder fraud that was carried out. We examined this very, very closely. Ultimately, we were all in agreement with the denial of this application. So in the matter of Gori Oric Andi Edlick and Alexander Edlich at Suffolk County Tax Map 300-197-6-1, I make a motion to approve the determination as written.
I second.
Concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Okay, next we have Robert Smith at 586 Montauk Highway, Montauk tax map number 300-47-1-1.1. And this Ed Johan, would you start us off on this, please?
Yes, I will. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The board will remember that this hearing was held on June 22nd, 2021, and that the decision or work session was on 9/14/2021. This was an application that required initially two variances, one for a height restriction, height variance because of the guardrail that was going to be on the third floor. Eventually, that was taken back because the applicant offered to make that a glass rail, and so it no longer was going to be an obstruction. So that was removed. We were left with only deciding on whether or not we would approve an overclearing, a temporary overclearing, and then a vigorous revegetation. We were all in approval on approving this one. It was all five of us agreed. So I would like to make a motion in the case of Robert Smith, 586 Montauk Highway, Montauk, Suffolk County Cap Map 300-47-01-1.1 to accept the resolution as written.
I'll second that.
I concur.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Next, we have Harold White at 229 Marine Boulevard in Amagansett, tax map number 300-175-6-12. And this is in my Amagansett district. I'm having a hard time pulling this up, though, unfortunately. Does anyone have it open where they could read the description here? Or I apologize. I have too many files here trying to.
I don't.
Nancy Linda, your email date was it the 22nd? Is that when you sent all those, I believe?
This is an extension of time, so this would have come from Laura.
Oh, this is one of the extensions. Oh, I may have this one then. Thank you.
Chairman, the following four are all extensions of time.
I have it, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, great. If you would. Thanks, Tim, if you would. Thank you.
So this is an extension of time for Harold White at Suffolk County Tax Map 300-175-6-12. We were all in concurrence with this. And so I make a motion to approve the extension of time for Harold White.
A second.
Concur.
I concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Tim, and I appreciate that. I just found the folder. Now I have that and the others. So next we will move on with Robin Diamant at 91 Napeague Harbor Road in Amagansett, tax map number 300-110-2-1. And this is in my Amagansett district. And this resolution was all, again, the approval here was unanimous for this extension of time. So I will make a motion with regard to Robert Diamant at 91 Napeague Harbor Road in Amagansett to approve the resolution extending determination as written.
Second.
I concur.
I'll concur.
Thank you. Okay, next we'll go on to Adelaide Dumanil at 43 Mile Hill Road in East Hampton, tax map number 300-72-1-2. And this is in Board Member Brenneman's district. Tim, if you would, or I have it open if you don't.
Nope, I have it. And the board remembers this property. It's an absolute gorgeous piece of property in the chairman's old neighborhood at 43 Mile Hill Road in East Hampton. We were all in concurrence on the approval. So I make a motion with regard to Adelaide D. Manil at 43 Mile Hill Road, East Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 300-72-1-2 to approve the resolution extending the determination as written.
I'll second it.
Concur.
Concur.
And I concur as well. Thank you, Tim. Finally, we have, under extensions, we have Jonathan Schlaffer and, pardon me, this is at 286 Fresh Pond Road in Amagansett, tax map number 300-127-3-3. And this entire board was in favor of approving this extension of time. So I will make a motion with regard to Jonathan Schlaffer at 286 Fresh Pond Road in Amagansett that the resolution extending determination be approved as written.
Second.
I concur.
I concur.
I concur.
Okay, thank you all, especially Nancy Lynn for all your work on this and the planning department. Council, anything else from you?
Nothing else on my agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Deline, I think we just need one motion from you and we'll be all set.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I therefore make a motion to close the public hearing in the work session for the Town of East Hampton Zoning Board of Appeals for Tuesday, September 28th at 8:37 p.m.
Second.
I
I
concur.
concur.
And I concur as well. Okay, thank you all and have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Take
Night.
care.